The containment field hummed with a frequency that made Kievan's teeth ache. He stood watch outside cell block 7, his plasma rifle held at ready position, though his hands trembled slightly. 3 months into the war between Earth and the Zarthan Empire, and he still wasn't used to the weight of taking another being's life, even an alien one. Through the translucent energy barrier he could see her, the child, or what passed for a child among the Zarthan. Elsa, as the translation matrix had interpreted her designation, sat curled in the corner of her cell, her 4 arms wrapped around her knees. Her skin shimmered between violet and deep blue, reflecting her emotional state. Right now, she was terrified. Kievan had been ordered to guard the high-value prisoner. Command had been very clear. The daughter of Matriarch Sevarine, supreme commander of the Zarthan forces, was humanity's greatest bargaining chip. She was to be kept alive, isolated, and under constant surveillance. Nothing more, nothing less. But Kievan had always been terrible at following orders that violated his conscience. "You shouldn't be here," came a voice behind him. Lieutenant Morrison, his commanding officer, approached with her usual brisk stride. "Your shift ended an hour ago." "Couldn't sleep," Kievan replied, not taking his eyes off Elsa. The child had begun to rock back and forth, a keening sound emanating from her throat that the translator couldn't quite process. Morrison followed his gaze. "Don't get attached, soldier. She's the enemy." "She's 7 years old," Kievan said quietly. The translation AI confirmed it. 7 years old in their life cycle. That's about equivalent to a human 5-year-old. "She's a tool, a weapon we can use to end this war." Morrison's voice hardened. "Her mother has killed thousands of our people, entire colonies wiped out. Or have you forgotten New Perth, New Seoul, Titan Station?" Kievan hadn't forgotten. He'd lost his sister at New Perth, but looking at Elsa, all he could see was his niece, the one who would never grow up because a Zarthan destroyer had reduced the colony to radioactive dust. And yet, vengeance on a child felt like becoming the very thing they were fighting against. Morrison left, but not before adding, "There's a reason you're on guard duty, Kievan, and not on the front lines. Don't make me regret keeping you here." As the lieutenant's footsteps faded, Kievan made a decision that would alter the course of everything. He lowered the containment field's opacity setting. Elsa's large, opalescent eyes met his, eyes that held an intelligence far beyond human children, yet carried the same universal language of fear and loneliness. "Can you understand me?" Kievan asked softly. The child tilted her head, her chromatophores shifting to a curious amber hue. "Yes," she replied, her actual voice like wind chimes, while the translator rendered it in flat, mechanical English. "You are Kievan. I have heard the others say your name. And you're Elsa." "I am 7th daughter of the matriarch line," she corrected, then added quietly, "but Elsa is simpler, softer. I like it when you say it." Kievan pulled up a chair, keeping his rifle slung but accessible. This was already a violation of protocol, but he'd crossed that line the moment he engaged in conversation. "Are you hungry?" he asked. Elsa's skin rippled with surprise. "You would feed me. The rations they've been giving you are nutritionally adequate, but I'd bet they taste like recycled protein paste. Am I right?" A sound emerged from Elsa that the translator interpreted as laughter. "It tastes like what you call sadness, I think." Over the following weeks, Kievan's unauthorized visits became routine. He brought her better food, synthesized to match Zarthan biochemistry, but with flavor profiles the cooking AI had extrapolated from their cultural databases. He brought her entertainment, holographic puzzles that challenged her clearly advanced mind, and stories from human literature that the translation matrix could render in her language. But more than anything, he brought her companionship. Elsa told him about her home world, Zarthos Prime, where great crystalline forests sang in the solar winds, and cities floated on electromagnetic fields above vast purple oceans. She spoke of her mother with a mixture of fear and admiration, Matriarch Sevarine, who had united 5 warring clans and led the Zarthan into an age of expansion. "Mother says your people are dangerous," Elsa said one night, her form pulsing with uncertainty. "That you spread like a plague, consuming worlds without thought for harmony." Kievan nodded slowly. "We've made mistakes, big ones, but we're also capable of great compassion, creativity, and change. Just like your people, I think. We're not that different." Mother would disagree. "Mothers aren't always right," Kievan said, then immediately regretted it. "I know what you mean," Elsa interrupted, her colors shifting to a contemplative teal. "I have wondered if this war needs to happen, but I am only a child. What do I know of such things?" "Sometimes children see clearer than adults," Kievan replied. "We get clouded by hatred, by loss, by pride." 3 months into Kievan's guardianship, everything changed. The Zarthan launched a massive offensive on the Proxima Centauri defense grid. Humanity's forces were being overwhelmed. Command made the call: broadcast Elsa's captivity, show the matriarch that her daughter's life hung in the balance, force a ceasefire. Kievan was removed from guard duty. He watched from the observation deck as interrogation specialists prepared to record Elsa, to use her as psychological warfare. He couldn't let it happen. That night, using security codes he'd carefully memorized and access points he'd identified during his months of guard duty, Kievan infiltrated cell block 7. Alarms would trigger the moment he deactivated the containment field, giving him perhaps 3 minutes before security arrived. "Elsa," he whispered urgently, "I'm getting you out." The child's eyes widened, her entire body flashing through a spectrum of colors that indicated shock. You would betray your people, for me." "I'm not betraying anyone, I'm trying to save everyone." Kievan deactivated the field and held out his hand. "Your mother loves you. If she knows you're safe, if she knows humanity can show mercy even to the daughter of her enemy, maybe, just maybe, we can find another way." "They will execute you for this," Elsa said, but she took his hand nonetheless, her smaller fingers, all 16 of them across 4 hands, gripping tightly. "Probably," Kievan agreed with a sad smile, "but some things are worth dying for." They moved through the station using maintenance corridors. Kievan had disabled surveillance in their path, but the window was closing fast. At the docking bay, he'd prepared an escape pod loaded with enough supplies to get Elsa to the neutral zone, a region of space monitored by the Concordance, the galactic peacekeeping force that had thus far stayed out of the human-Zarthan conflict. As Kievan secured Elsa in the pod, proximity alarms shrieked. Security teams were converging on their position. "Go," Kievan commanded, initiating the launch sequence. Elsa's colors flashed with distress. "Come with me, please." "I can't. They'll shoot down the pod if I'm in it, but you're too valuable, they won't risk it." He smiled at her one last time. "Tell your mother what happened here. Tell her that not all humans are monsters. Tell her that we can choose differently." "Kievan." The pod's doors sealed, and with a rush of expelled atmosphere, it launched into space. Security teams burst into the bay moments later, finding Kievan standing with his hands raised, watching the pod's drives carry Elsa toward freedom. Lieutenant Morrison's face was a mask of fury and disbelief. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Yeah," Kievan said quietly. "I chose hope over hate." The court-martial was swift. Kievan was sentenced to execution for treason, for aiding the enemy, for compromising humanity's strategic position. He had 3 days before the sentence would be carried out. On the second day, everything changed again. A single Zarthan ship appeared at the edge of Earth's defensive perimeter, not a warship, but a diplomatic vessel. It broadcast a message on all frequencies in perfect English. "I am Matriarch Sevarine of the Zarthan Empire. I come to speak with the human called Kievan, who showed mercy to my daughter when your people would have used her as a weapon. I come to hear his words. I come to consider if this war must continue or if another path exists. The revelation sent shockwaves through both civilizations. Elsa had been recovered by Concordance peacekeepers and returned to her mother, along with a detailed account of everything Kievan had done: the kindness, the conversations, the stories, and finally, the sacrifice. Kievan was brought before Matriarch Sevarine in a hastily arranged diplomatic meeting, still in restraints, still under sentence of death. The matriarch was imposing, nearly 3 meters tall, with 6 arms and a crown of bioluminescent nodes that pulsed with controlled power. Her colors were muted, formal, revealing nothing of her inner state. "You protected my daughter," she said, her actual voice like deep bells, resonating in frequencies that made the walls vibrate. "When you could have ignored her suffering, when you had every reason to hate us. Why?" Kievan met her alien gaze without flinching. Because she was a child. Because cruelty to the innocent, no matter how we justify it, makes us into the very evil we claim to fight against. Because I believe we can be better, both of our species. We must be better, or what's the point of survival? Sevarine's colors shifted subtly. A shade that Kievan had learned from Elsa meant deep consideration. "My daughter speaks highly of you. She says you told her stories of human heroes who chose compassion over vengeance, understanding over hatred. She says you taught her your word, mercy." The matriarch's colors deepened. "We have no such word in our language. We have strategic clemency and calculated forbearance, but mercy, choosing kindness without expectation of return, this is foreign to us." "Maybe that's something we can teach each other," Kievan suggested. "We have much to learn from you as well." Matriarch Sevarine was silent for a long moment. Then, she spoke words that would echo through history. "Your people would execute you for showing kindness to my child. This tells me much about the fear that drives this conflict, but it also tells me that individuals can rise above their species' worst impulses." She turned to address the assembled human and Zarthan delegations. "I propose a ceasefire, not because I believe my people cannot win this war. We could, though at terrible cost to both sides, but because Kievan has shown me that victory and wisdom are not the same thing." The road to peace was not simple or swift. There were factions on both sides that opposed any reconciliation. There were atrocities to account for, losses to mourn, and deep wounds to heal. But it began with a single human who chose to see the child rather than the enemy, who chose hope rather than hate. Kievan was pardoned, his treason recharacterized as an unauthorized act of diplomacy. He became an ambassador of sorts, working alongside Elsa, who grew into a brilliant mediator in her own right, to build bridges between two civilizations that had nearly destroyed each other. Years later, at the dedication of the first joint human-Zarthan research station, Matriarch Sevarine found Kievan standing alone, looking out at the stars. "I have never properly thanked you," she said, her colors warm and genuine, "for returning my daughter, for showing me a different path." Kievan shook his head. "Elsa saved us all, I just gave her the chance." "No," Sevarine corrected gently. "You gave us all the chance, and I will never forget what you did, human Kievan. Neither will my people, neither will history." She placed one of her hands on his shoulder, a gesture she'd learned from humans, adopted now in Zarthan culture as a sign of deep respect. And together they watched the stars, no longer divided by war, but united by the memory of a soldier who chose compassion, and a child who carried that lesson home. In the end, Kievan had been right. Some things were worth dying for, but finding a way for everyone to live together, that was worth even more. The end.